Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming tonight and making it despite the rain. I'm Cameron, Um, thank you. And I just wanted to introduce myself, the Meetup, and say a couple thank yous. So my name's Cameron. I work at a startup in Midtown. I used to work here at Thoughtbot. And I wanted to start there and say thank you to Thoughtbot for hosting us tonight. And Stephanie back there is the gracious office manager, so we can direct our applause in her direction. And also Thomas Logan over here is one of the co-organizers. I love this. Everyone's like on board tonight. This is great. And also Jolly McPhee is doing the live stream. We're streaming out in real time on YouTube. I think we've tweeted a link out, so we're going to tweet a link out, so if you want to retweet that, go for it. And then, thank you, Jolly. And then otherwise, Mirror by Night and White Coat captioning up here on the screen. This is not some crazy like text-to-speech AI. This is a person, and she's awesome. So thank you, Mirror by. And then finally, thank you to Level Access for their ongoing support and sponsorship of the event. And thanks again to all of you. So with that, I'll introduce Adina Halter. Adina, I'll let you describe your I'm not going to take away any of your punchlines, so why don't you take it away?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Well, I'm really excited to be here, and I'm really excited to be talking about scalable fonts. And let me tell you a little bit about myself first. I am Senior Product Manager and Chief Technologist for Accessibility at Comcast NBC Universal. I'm down in Philadelphia, but we've also got that Comcast building up in 30 Rock, so get to go there sometimes too. I tweet a lot. Please feel free to tweet during or after if there's anything that you find that's really exciting. My handle is HaltersWeb, HaltersWeb. That's basically my last name pluralized, and web, World Wide Web. I also have GitHub. I will read the GitHub URL. That is haltersweb.github.io/accessibility, but the A must be capitalized. I don't know why I did it that way, but I can't change it now. So the A must be capitalized, or you're going to see nothing. And that is a page that will show some of my work. It's not pretty, but it's a lot of the solutions that we've been building. And I've got some exciting new solutions that are going to be coming in. So if any of you are at CSUN, come and see my talk about bar and pie charts that are completely tables, all CSS. No SVGs, no nothing. All CSS, no JavaScript required. And that will be posted real soon, but we'll wait until February, March to post that. Alrighty, so WCAG 2.0, we got to start there. And this is why scalable fonts are so important. They're WCAG required. 2 WCAG requirements, 1.4.4, called resize text. Except for captions and images of text, text can be resized without assistive technology up to 200%. Remember that, guys, 200%. And this is big, without loss of content or functionality. A lot of times you'll see there's resize and then you go, ugh. So we want the user experience to be just as stellar, whether you're at 100% or 200%. And we're going to talk about what that means. The other one, 1.4.5, images of text. If the technologies being used can achieve the visual representation, and it can, text is used to convey information rather than images of text, except for the following. The image of text can be fully customized to the user's requirements. And essential, here we go. A particular presentation of text is essential to the information being conveyed, and that includes logos. That is part of a logo or a brand name are considered essential. All right? So we're going to see how we can do that. All righty. Why? Why resizable text? When someone comes to the browser, they didn't just start being low vision when they got to the browser. All right? They have their settings already set up. They've got operating system settings set up maybe, font size set up maybe. They may have it set to 200%, 300%, 400%, okay? So it's not just when you get to the browser. So what we want to do is we want to reflect those operating system settings. Also, this allows for global change, meaning anytime we get to our website that we've built properly, it's going to be resized. We don't have to go, okay, this page, but not that page, or every time we go, it's going to be a different experience based on our settings that day. And this is key. User action is not necessary. That's why Zoom, that Command plus, or that Control plus, Command plus, depending on whether you're on a Mac or PC, is a no-no. I mean, yes, it's really helpful, but again, remember, somebody who has low vision didn't just get to the browser and go, oh, now I've got low vision, now I need to Command plus or Control plus, right? Also remember, Command plus, Control plus, that is for only that period of time, all right? And for that one website. And I would expect all your websites would be scalable, so they wouldn't have to Command plus or Control plus every time they got to a different site that you had created. Also, we have to think in terms of comorbidity. Comorbidity is when you have more than one, maybe more than one disabilities, maybe more than one, it runs the range in medical terms. You know, you could have more than one symptom in your whatever you might have, but think about comorbidity in terms of disability. So, for example, my cousin who has cerebral palsy, so he's got mobility issues, he's got low vision, and he's got cochlear implants. So we're not just solving for one thing. And imagine if my cousin Bobby goes to a site that I created and he's got low vision, but now he has to Command plus, and that's going to be difficult for him, all right? Because he's using a switch device, all right? Not impossible, but really, we want to give a great user experience. I'm all about delighting everyone, all right? So, I'm going to show you how to find out if your site or if a site has used relative font sizing. I'm going to show you how to do it in Firefox, and I'll share the slides with you afterwards. But I have both imagery here and description. So, testing font scaling in Firefox. You'll want to open the menu, the Firefox menu, go to Preferences, go to Language and Appearance, go to Fonts and Colors, and go to the default font size and set a larger font size. Default is 16 pixels. So you'll want to set maybe 32 pixels. That's 200%. For Chrome, open Customize, go to Settings, go to Appearance, go to Font Size, and you can also use the Customize fonts. I love those, that little slider, and set a large font size again. If you use a customized font size slider, go big, go big or go home. Up to 72 pixels, Again, remember, default medium, 16 pixels. That's your default. All right, let me show you that real quick. And let's take a look at some sites. Whoops, wrong page. All righty. So what I have open now, I'm in Chrome, and I have my settings open. And if you'll notice, the font size says medium recommended. You'll also notice a couple lines down, it says page zoom. Do not touch that. That's your Command plus, Command minus. Don't touch that. All right. We're going to mimic an operating system resetting the default font size, okay? Without having to do that with our own operating systems. So what I'm going to do, well, before I do that, let's take a look. We're going to look at Xfinity.com. So that's a project that we've been working on, done some really innovative things. We're going to actually be talking about that. The engineer will be coming to CSUN with me and talking about what he's been doing with this. We're looking at everything in the default font size. We're looking at Google, just a, Google search. We're looking at Apple. We're looking at Microsoft. We'll look at the W3C. We'll look at WebAIM. And we'll look at the Web Accessibility Initiative. And by the way, Web Accessibility Initiative is in the process of being redesigned. So we'll keep you posted. All right? I've been talking to them about, I'm on the WAI, I've been, for this redesign, I've been talking to them about, remember relative font size, remember relative font size, remember relative font size. So we'll see how that goes. Question mark? All right. I'm going to actually go to customize fonts because we're going to do something obnoxious. And we're going to go to the font size. We won't touch minimum font size. We're just going to go to the customize font size slider because I want to make it really huge, okay? All right? You can get really huge. Let's go super huge just so we can see if anything changed on those sites. Sometimes, by the way, you'll have to refresh to really get a good representation, but let's just check. Let's see. Xfinity, yes, woo. By the way, you'll notice Xfinity Global Navigation, not yet. That is in our backlog. There's a lot of, it's not as straightforward, let's put it that way. So that's going to be, we'll get it there. Google, Google's search. Well, the bottom links, advertising, business, privacy, terms and settings, that all grew, but the rest of the page did not. Isn't that interesting? Apple, no, just exactly the same as it was. Thankfully, they use super large graphics to begin with, but would help if the fonts could be readable. Thank you very much. Microsoft, no change there. W3C, woo, woo. But what you'll notice is, and I'm going to refresh this. You'll notice great, and then you get to, this is what I was saying. Yes, relative font sizing, but poor user experience. Things are laying on top of each other. It's it would be very difficult for me to use. You'll also notice that the white space, the area that allows your eye to rest, has been just filled up because the white space, the leading, the margins and padding and line height, none of that changed. That should change along with the font size. We'll talk about that in a moment. WebAIM, woo! Let's refresh to see if, yeah. So again, some of it's good, but here we are at the top, and things are laying on top of other things. It is a very poor user experience. Sorry, anyone who's here from WebAIM. And the Web Accessibility Initiative, great. Oh my goodness, they're probably the best of all of these, except for Xfinity, I'd say. But and this is their old site. But you'll notice way down here, if I can get to the bottom, we're going to get to an area where there's a little picture. And it's the video pages updated. And the thumbnail is so tiny, it just didn't scale with everything else. We're going to talk about that, okay? All righty. So let's go back to regular font size right now. Okay. All right. I said it before. I'll say it again. Browser default. That's your root. And we're going to be saying the word root a lot, and you'll see why. Your root, otherwise known as your HTML, is 16 pixels. Now, I should say it renders to 16 pixels. All right? And that's really a big distinction, because the HTML, the root, is truly taking things and rendering them in scalability. So 100%, 200%, etc. But when you get to the rendering, after you've done what you've done to scale it, what does it render at? And you can find this in Computed, and we'll look at it in a moment. It renders to 16 pixels. So keep that in your mind as well. All right. So we're going to talk about pixels. We're going to talk about ems. Who here has heard of ems? Okay. And who here has heard of rems? Good. About half of you have heard of rems too. Great. You can guess that's the secret, huh? All right. Let's take a look at ems and pixels, ems, and rems. Our target is 14 pixels. All right. And if we set 14 pixels, I set the list item, a table data cell, and the paragraph at 14 pixels. And we're at one time scaling, so 100%. And I have a render here in a table cell, and that is 14 pixels. But now I've got a list item in a table cell, and that is also, thankfully, 14 pixels because we set it. All right? No problem with scaling. This is great. Then we've got a paragraph in a list item in a table cell. Because we set it at 14 pixels, it's locked in there. Everything looks beautiful. So this is promising. Now we're going to move it up 200%. Uh-oh. So we moved it up 200%. It's still locked. 14 pixels. It's not 28 pixels. It's 14 pixels. You have overridden what the user wanted. All right? So pixels, not the way to go. But we use pixels often because of the problems with rems and with ems. And we'll see that here. So I'm using ems now. The list item, the table cell, and the paragraph are all set to 0.875 m, which I'm trying for 14 pixels. So if default is 16, 14 divided by 16 is 0.875, right? And In the table cell, just the text in the table cell, we got it. 14, it renders to 14 pixels. Yay. But when we've got a list item in a table cell, now it's 14 pixel rendered times 0.875. So that's kind of like 12, I think, or so pixels. And then we've got a paragraph in a list item in a table cell. We're compounding again. And so we've got 14 times 0.875 times 0.875, and that's around 10 pixels. And when we go to 2 times scale, yes, everything scales, but again, we see in the text just in the table cells bigger and way bigger than the text all the way to the right in the paragraph in the list item in a table cell. So that's why a lot of times we go back to pixels, because we want that look. What are we going to do? Well, REMs. All right, I'll talk about REMs, what they are in a moment, but same 0.875, but this time 0.875 REM. And this is also promising. So in a table cell, that looks like 14 pixels. In a list item in a table cell, that looks like 14 pixels. In a paragraph in a list item in a table cell, that's also 14 pixels. All right, proof is in the pudding though. We're going to go 200%. And everything scales up. So at 200% scale, or 2 times scale, the table cell, 28 pixels. List item in a table cell, 28 pixels. In a paragraph in a list item in a table cell, 28 pixels. All right. Now, if you'll notice at the top, I've got a code pen, and that is https://codepen.io/haltersweb/full/capital X small z j w I think it is. And we're going to go to that. And I did something a little bit different there. And I made, instead of going to 0.875, I've gone up. So it's like 1.25. So we're trying to get 20 rendered at 20 pixels, okay? My first table, everything's set via pixels, so that's 20 pixels. Second, with using M, that's 1.25 M. And the third table, 1.25 REM. I am going to go to the preferences in Firefox. I'm going to go there and I'm going to say, I'm going to go to double it, 20%, which is 32 pixels. Let's look back. And our first, there we go again. Our first table, still at 20 pixels. The M, everything is growing. I think by the end, we're at like 50-something pixels. Not what we were looking for. But then using REM, you see how everything scales properly. Any questions? All right, so let's talk about REMs. What is a REM? REM just starts for root M. So an M is the width of an M, all right? And 1 M relative to the default, remember, 16 pixels would be 1 M, also 1 REM, in the root, okay? The root, otherwise known as the HTML. This is a CSS3 thing, so IE 9+. If you have to do older browsers, what I like to do is I do a pixel size and then a REM size underneath. all right, in my CSS. So the problem is algebra. And, you know, when your kids say, oh, Mom, I'm never going to use it. Well, guess what? We're going to have to use it if we're going to be figuring out what the rem size is. So if it's 16 pixels for the default, so 1M, 1 rem is 16 pixels, is equal to x over 21 pixels, because I'm trying to get to 21 pixels right now, all right? So 21 pixels in my CSS, I'm going to have to write 1.3125 rem. Well, that's a pain in the butt. I didn't sign up for doing algebra. I don't know if you guys did, but I didn't. So we have a way around it. It is the 62.5 root reset. What am I doing? I'm trying to make, remember I said default was 16 pixels? I'm trying to make one root M, one rem, 10 pixels. So 10 pixels divided by 16 pixels is 62.5. But you'll notice I didn't force the root, the HTML, to say 10 pixels. It's going to render at 10 pixels, but again, I'm keeping everything relative. So 62.5. So now all I have to do is move a decimal point. That is it. So 21 pixels, 2.1 rem. And that's the amount of math I'm willing to sign up for. So, and you'll see back here again, if we look, in fact, I'm going to go into Chrome because I like Chrome DevTools better. Let's look in our code pen, that same one that I'd mentioned earlier. And if we look at our root, I'm going to go to the HTML. Oh, I didn't do it in here. That's right, because I did it in. Here we go. That was just the beginning. We'll be talking about this in a moment. I won't give you all the URL yet, but you'll just notice that I put it into my reset, or I put it into my brand CSS. It's always there. All right, HTML, font size, 62.5%. All right, and then when I have to make a measurement, so in this case, I wanted 14 pixel rendered, and so the text, by the way, I know the text is black on images. This is just meant to be a quick example. But the text, font size 1.4 rem. Let's see. Proof is in the pudding. We're going to go to computed in our Chrome DevTools. And we're going to go down to font size. Look at that. It renders at 14 pixels. Yay! And there was much rejoicing. Any questions about that? Yes.
So, I know.
Oh, yes. Do you want to? Oh, you got it? Okay.
Yeah,
good.
I got it. Thank you. I know you mentioned that for Firefox and Chrome, both the default sizes are 16 pixels. But what if, like, for I don't know if you checked on Safari and IE.
They're all 16.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
IE, Safari, Opera. It's just the standard.
Got you.
Yep.
So what's the reasoning behind of setting the percentage instead of like a real pixel? For example, can I in my codes, can I just say font size 10 pixel
For the root?
Yeah, for the root.
Good question. So if you're trying to manipulate the root through your operating system, and you're doing a percentage of 16 of what the default is, but you've locked it at pixels the same way you locked the paragraph at pixels. You're saying, operating system, I don't want your percentage. I'm making it 16 pixels. That's just the way it's going to be. So it won't scale. We can take a look at that, in fact. Let's do that. Let me go back to pixel. Oh, wait, no, let's go to, okay, right here. I'm going to go to HTML, and instead of font size 62.5, I'm going to lock it, because remember we're trying to go 10 pixels, right? 10 pixels, okay? So now, HTML is 10 pixels. Watch it make a liar out of me. It still works. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Oh, you were in a different tab. You were in the tab with
Oh, was I in a different? Oh, was I?
Yeah, the dog.
Oh, okay, there we go.
Uh-huh.
So you see, it locked. So I didn't make a liar out of myself. Yay! So what we've done is we've said, no, we want this to be pixels, and it can't scale. Okay? Sure. Yes.
Would you? Oh, sorry, Mayor. Bye. So when you did that trick with the HTML tag and the CSS with the 62.5%, because all browsers render at 16 pixels, do we not have to ever mess with that really? And it'll always be that perfect like 1.4, 14.
Right, just
2.6,
because
26.
I did the initial math in the HTML tag. I just don't want to have to be doing, having scratch paper next to my desk all the time.
For every single time you make to find like a class or something.
Exactly. If
Being like, what's the percent? Or, yeah.
Exactly. I'll have, all of a sudden a UX person will give me, and there's like 20 different rendered pixel sizes on there, and I'm doing the math. I just want to move a decimal point. It's not necessary. If you love algebra, don't do 62.5 because you're going to have fun all day long. But if you've got better things to do like I do, then 62.5 is just a trick. Okay? Yes?
What's the browser support for REMs?
Browser support for REMs, IE9 plus. So if you're doing IE8, what we used to do is we used to do 62.5% for the HTML, again, so that we don't have to do the math. Then we would write font size, let's say we're going for 21 pixels. Font size 21px, and then right underneath it, font size 2.1 rem. IE8 and below would ignore, they go, I don't know what a rem is, and so it'll take that first one and stay there. But everything else it'll reset to the rem, because that's the second class, that's the second style, in the order. Does that make sense? Any other questions before we move on? All right, cool. All right, we're going to reset this. Okay. We set this back to 16 pixels. Okay. And you'll notice just what we were looking at. I'm going to then refresh, and my layout changed as well. That's because we're going to be talking about it. We're going to be doing some fun and funky things with media queries. But that's just a tidbit of what's coming up next. All righty. All right. So that doesn't mean we don't use M's. M's are great. When you've already got your rem setting for your text, and then you want to do padding or margins relative to that text size, then use M's, because you're saying whatever you are font size, I'm going to scale accordingly for your padding and your margins. And this means you don't have to then do math for or figure out the rems for those margins and paddings. And if you happen to change, let's say you were at 21 pixels and UX comes and says, no, I decided I wanted 25 pixels. You don't have to go and revisit your margins and padding. It all happens, and the breathability moves along and scales along with the text. All you have to do is the font size itself, 20, whatever I said, 20, 2.8 rem, and everything else will grow with it. We're also going to use M for media queries, okay? And we'll talk about that in a moment. Okay, who's heard of X before? Okay, a couple of you. So I like X, and I like X because I came from print design, and X is the nice thing is X is the height of a lowercase x. So do you guys, so why would I want to use X's? And this, you don't have to. But I like using X's when I'm talking about vertical margins and paddings, your top and your bottom margins and padding. Because you know how some fonts, your lowercase are really big. And other fonts, your lowercase are really tiny. So one may have some more breathing room relative to another. And if I set a M, then I'm really basing it on the width, which may be the same between two fonts. But I might, if UX decides to change the font on me, by using X, it will allow for more or less breathability relative to what that font's X height is. Just something I like to do. You don't have to, but I like it. So I use it for top and bottom text margin and text padding. Then unitless line height. I mean, we see that all the time in Word. What's our paragraph line height? It's going to be 1.2 or 1.25 or 1.3. Do the same thing. It's all relative to that font. Yeah, you want to use M's or Rems, but why not stick with what is the convention? Because actually, when you get a Photoshop file and you look at it, it'll often be 1.2, 1.3, 1.5. So just do the same thing. And you can use percentage, or you can use line, the decimal, but I like decimal. Otherwise, you have to do 125%. Any questions about that before I move on? Okay, I want to show you guys for a moment how changing our margins and padding and changing our line height is really going to help us. So I'm going to go back to our example websites. We're going to go to settings. We're going to drag that up to, we're going to make it obnoxious. We're going to go to 40. We're going to go to, let's go to WebAIM. And I'm going to refresh just so we can see what we have. Sometimes you have to refresh. Okay, let's play with some of this text that is laying over top. I'm going to look at our heading. We have web accessibility in mind. And I am going to look at it in my Chrome Developer Tools. And I see that the H1 has a font size. They're using percentage, by the way, here. But and line height is 75%. Great, you know, they're using relative. But their margin bottom is 7 pixels. So let's just do 7 REM and see what happens. And do you see that we've just pushed everything away? Let's take it down to maybe 2 rem is nice for this. Let's do instead of rem, we want to do m, right? Not rem, but m. Let's do x, actually. X. And so it's the margin bottom is going to be the height of 2 x's. So we'll go with what I had said before. When we go and we move this down a little bit to 28 pixels, yes?
Adina, quick question. I was wondering what they were using for their root font size.
The root font size? All right, let's look at that in a moment. You'll notice that this got smaller. It's still relative to the X, but it's keeping that breathability. That's all they needed to do. Let's look at what their root is. Now, I would imagine they haven't reset it because they're using percentages, but let's just see. No, they haven't. They set the font at 100%. Well, that's what it is. I don't know why they just really driving it home there. You know, default 16 pixels. That's what we want it rendered at. So they didn't. Okay. So that already helps us out here. I could do the same thing with horizontal paddings and margins, etc. Any questions about that? So, go home and pull up some of these sites, play, and see if you can help them out, and then send them the code, and they'll all be really happy. Oh, thank you, because we're a nonprofit, and you did our work for us. All righty. Now, I'm going to go into scaling imagery. But to do that, I want to talk a little bit about box sizing. Does any of you here have heard of border box versus content box? Okay, some of you have. Content box is your default. What is content box? It says that when I say what, let's say the width of a box is, we'll just use width right now. That width of that box is just for the content, for the text inside, etc. When I add padding to that, it's going to make it a little bit bigger. The content area stays the same, but now it's growing a little bit because I've added padding. And I wanted to add a border, so it grows a little bit more. So what you end up with is a box that's way larger than the box you were originally planning on wanting. So you have to do a lot of math. Again, really, I don't want to do that. So, do you know that there's actually in February, it's Global Border Box Day. Yeah, it is. I kid you not. I'll have to find that link for you all. Let me show you what I'll show you over here in Firefox. I'm going to go back to regular size, 16 pixels. This isn't truly about our relative sizing, but it's going to help us when we're doing our relative sizing for our fonts. For our imagery. So we're going to go to border box versus content box. Let me give you that URL. It's also CodePen. So https://codepen.io/haltersweb/full/J, capital O, small b, capital P, small a, small y. And what you'll have here is a box that has the exact, we have two boxes. They have the exact same CSS. Exact same CSS. The second box has box sizing, border box. So we're going to look at that for a moment. I'm going to inspect the element. I'm going to go move that to the right. And you'll notice the div itself. I've got two divs. So the div is a width of 20 rem. I don't think I set the yes, I did. I set the HTML to 62.5. So I'm looking for, in essence, 200 pixels, 20 rem. Width of 200 pixel rendered, 20 rem. Height, 20 rem. Border, 2 rem or 20 pixel thickness of border. My padding, also 2 rem or 20 pixel rendered padding. Margin, 5 rem or 50 pixels rendered. Okay? Let's take a look at, and what we see is the top box is way larger than the bottom box. Okay? I'm going to go to Chrome for that same, there we go, for that same CodePen, just because I've got a nifty little plug-in in CodePen where we can measure. But we're also going to use our computed size. So I'm going to go to the top box. All right, content box. And what we look at when we look at the rendered, at default, 200 pixel by 200 pixel for the content, and we actually have the word content box written in there, and it's to the left and to the top of that content box. Growing out of that 200 by 200, we've got a 20 pixel rendered pixel padding. You can see that there. And there's our border, 20 rendered border, and our margin, top and bottom, because the other one I just did auto, so that you can see. But top and margin is 50 pixel rendered. Margin, no matter what, whether it's content box or border box, is always going to be on the outside. It's not part of the sizing. But let's see how big our box that we see, not including margin, is. So that's 220, 240, 260, 280 pixels. Let's make sure that that's correct. I'm going to go to, I have a little measuring tool on Chrome. I don't remember what it's called. I've had it forever. And that's, what did we say, 280? So there it is, 280 by 280. In essence, 280 by 280. But that's not what we wanted. We just wanted a 100 pixel box, right? If we move it down, okay, to the bottom one, we are asking for a 200 pixel rendered width and height. So what do we have? We've got, starting from the outside, the border is 20 pixels. The padding is 20 pixels. And what it leaves left is 120 by 120. So now I've got 20 plus 20 plus 120 plus 20 plus 20 is 200. And let's just size that from the outer border, from the top left to the bottom right. And in essence, if I could draw better, 200 by 200. Okay? Boom. All right, good enough. And I'm going to now take this area that I measured. I'm going to just drag it back up, and we see that there's that. If we superimpose that on the content box, there's our 200 by 200. Any questions on that? So what I like to do is do a global reset of that. And the global reset that I like to use, I set the HTML to box sizing border box so that I can do an inherit, okay? So I do an asterisk before pseudo element, and an asterisk colon after pseudo element. And I do box sizing, box dash sizing colon inherit. All right. Nifty. Any questions about that? Again, I don't like doing math, and this will allow me to not ever have to do that ever again. All right, so now we're going to size our imagery with REMS. And let me tell you the story of that. We were working real hard on Xfinity, and we're going to go over to Xfinity. Here's Xfinity. I'm going to go to my settings, and I'm going to drag it to 32 pixels, okay? And I'm going to re-render my Xfinity stream, web app, and we'll see that the imagery grew. That's not how we had done it originally. We had just done the text. What happened was we started looking at it on TVs because a lot of people are now using these HTML5 apps on their TVs. And we were getting it was getting really teeny ridiculous, that imagery. At first we were thinking our imagery is pretty big to begin with, so it's not going to be too much of a problem. Yeah. Why not? It was just like, why not, if we're knowing that our REMs are relative to the pixel size that we want rendered, why not just do it again? What do we want in our default as our width and our height of the image or of the icon or of the logo, and just move a decimal point and make it in REMs. And so that allowed us, when I hover over, let's say, just recorded or recently watched, wait, what is, oh, I'm going to go, where's my, some of these you can over, okay, there we go. I'm going to hover over the, one of the shows. The image has grown. It's now 200% larger than it was standard. And we have a watch button and an episodes button. We have a just aired season number, and we've got the NBC logo, and they're all staying in proportion to that image, which is staying in proportion to the rest of the interface. And when we go to saved, oh, not saved, go to live TV, we'll do my favorite channels. I don't have any favorite channels, okay. All channels. And we'll see that all of the logos down the left-hand side are all larger. The stars are larger for doing favorites. The channel number's larger. The basically everything's larger. You'll notice the padding and margin, all of that breathing. And when I make it the settings back to 16 pixels, and I re-render, everything goes back to original size accordingly. All right. Any questions about that? Cool. So let's go and fix our web aim, our WAI, the W3C WAI site. I'm going to do this. Yes. Make that larger. I'll make it way larger.
So then, do you have any advice or guidance on the creation of the images and what resolution they would need to be?
Oh, are you
in order
talking
to
about for
scaling
for
up?
So, good question. Yeah, I'd go nicer, but you know what I mean. But you want to go larger, but you also have to think about about bandwidth. So I would try at 200% in what you might think is the largest device that someone would, with maybe low vision, would normally use. We're seeing things go off the screen because I'm just using a tiny screen. They would have a larger monitor. So I'd go to that. I'd take a look, bring your font size, your default size up 200%, and look at it and see what you can live with. Now, here's a little trick. Oftentimes, we'll take imagery and we will save it at a higher resolution or whatever, 60 or 80 from Photoshop to make it look nicer. So there's no pixelization. And you get a honkin' large image. But here's a trick that we used to use. We used to make super large images, but at the lowest resolution, like 10. Okay? So there's a lot of weird pixelization if you looked at it in, at the regular size. But then we'd scale that image down and it would start looking awesome. But our image was smaller K than if we had tried to go with what we wanted and went to a higher resolution. Does that make sense?
To higher resolution or higher size?
No. So best way to show is this. Let me just go to Photoshop. Let's open up an image. Open. You know what? I'm just gonna. All right. We're gonna go because I just worked on this. This is my son who's graduating. Yay! And he had lots of acne, and I had to get rid of it, and without paying $50 to have them do it. So, okay. So let's try a couple things. One, we're going to render it for the web. Save for web. And what was that? Oh, good gravy. Sorry about that. Let me get our captions back. Well, and Photoshop is just taking. Photoshop died. Photoshop died. We'll look at it afterwards. All right. Yeah, okay, ignore. Alrighty, but just play with that. There's actually a lot of articles about that, about how large you want to make the file and what the pixel resolution or whatever you call it, the quality is. I have a question. Yes.
So I'm a UX designer, and I know a little bit about code.
Mm-hmm.
I can do HTML and CSS,
Mm-hmm.
but some of the screens that I design are specifically for mobile
Mm-hmm.
or for responsive web.
Okay.
So how do you, or what would you recommend for scaling imagery for just specific mobile screens?
Good question. Well, what I would do if I were you is, using your media queries, and we're going to be talking about responsive media queries. And then at your media query, decide what you wanted that target to look like. And then reset your image size based on what your target at a default was going to be. And if you do it in REMS, then as that grows, so somebody who has low vision, maybe they're never going to be using a very small screen device. They may choose to use an iPad. So what they may do is bump up their font size. Everything will scale. You've got your media queries, which is all scaling too, and what their tablet experience is going to be like is maybe what your phone experience is going to be like.
I guess I'm just a little bit confused. Can you explain that again?
Okay, sure. So, if they're wanting a mobile phone experience, but like my cousin Bobby, he can't fit a mobile phone experience on his phone with his operating system making everything so large. So what he'll do is he'll grab his iPad and turn it vertically, but his operating system fonts are, let's say, 200, 400% larger. So what he's going to see is what you would see on your phone, because he's not getting a tablet experience. He bumped it up, so he's getting a phone experience on his tablet. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So, so let's just do a quickie here. I'm going to take the Web Accessibility Initiative. We're going to go all the way down to this teeny image. And everything else scaled beautifully, but the image didn't. So let's right-click on the image and inspect it. And we'll see that the image... Okay, the video thumbnail width is 160 pixels. That's what they were going for. So let's do, I don't know if they probably didn't set 62.5. So I'm assuming we're going to go back to that 16. So that would be 16 rem. Let's see, 16 rem. Wait, no, I think I did that math wrong. I think I'm still... Yeah. See, I don't want to have to do it. Okay, so 16 rem, but there is, if I remember correctly, when I played with this before, there was a... Oh, wait, here it is. There we go. So now I've got a scaled image because I used REMS. I knew what the designer wanted at the regular default look and feel, and you just do the math, hopefully the 10%, and you get the size that you want. It will render beautifully in default, and then if they make it larger, it's going to render it's going to look the same. It's going to be the same experience, just on a larger a larger real estate or whatever. Does that make sense? So the last thing is relative media queries. I had a slide that said, up till yesterday, this is our one bugaboo, this is our one problem. When we were doing all of this work on Xfinity Stream, we were trying to use them. We had a 62.5 reset, and we were trying to mimic that width on the media query, and it wasn't working. The breakpoints were not happening. So we were like, that's just an area that someday it'll get solved. Those bad browser people. Well, it wasn't. It was the fact that we were assuming, the screen was the root, or the screen followed the root. I can set the root, which is the HTML, but screen is still assuming 16 pixels. And what happened was I was working on this, a problem yesterday, which is this, it's like a grid system. What we're doing is we're creating a remote control that's on the web that can be paired to your Xfinity, your X1 system, your Comcast X1 box, and you pair it, and then you can use the website to change channels, get info. Every single button that would be on a remote control is now on a web page. So if you're using Tobii Eye Gaze, or if you're using a sip and puff switch, or if let's say you just have arthritis and pushing those buttons are just really hard, but you can tab around and you can hit your enter key. So that whole aging in place, that's what we're going for here. So we've been working on that, but we needed to be able to, again, remember thinking of comorbidity, we needed to think in terms of people who also wanted or had their operating system font size larger. And we wanted to give them that thing. So what you'll notice is, and I can't go wide enough. If I had a super long screen, I could go wide enough and force it back to what I have is kind of a 3-column grid. Now we've got a 1-column grid. But everything broke very nicely because my blah, 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 blah. I've got to find it. No. All right, I'm going to go and find my original. I'm going to do change view. Oh, by the way, let me just give that URL real quick before I go to the edit view. It's also CodePen, https://codepen.io/codependcode/full/small g, large or capital X, capital M, capital Q, capital B, small w. I'm going to change the view to not do a full page view, but then editor view. And you'll see that my media query is down here. So what I wanted was I wanted it to break and give us a kind of a desktop feel at 120 pixels. And what was happening is I was footsing with it, and I was like, oh my goodness, I think that's about a multiple of 16. And lo and behold, that's what it was. So I rewrote the slide, and what we have now, and I'm using REMS, but you can just use M's because you're talking about the screen, remember? So REMS doesn't really mean anything. It's just going to say, default is 16, this is the screen, this is not HTML tag. And so you can notice if I change from 70 rem to 70 m, nothing's broken. And honestly, I think I like m over rem. It just makes more semantic sense, and I'm a semantic stickler. And I'm going to now change my settings back from 40 pixels back down to 16. I'm going to go back to that little grid, and I'm going to increase my grid width, and the media query kicks in there as well. Like I said, take this home, stick it on your TV, and change the width, and you'll see that that happens relative to whatever that default font is. That default, yeah, you know what I mean. It's late. Any questions about that? Okay, so bonus tip. Absolutely and utterly nothing to do with this talk, but I am an evangelist for this, and it is never using ClearFix ever again. I have not used a ClearFix since 2010. That's 7 years. I have not used a ClearFix. I have not used a before and after pseudo element ClearFix. I have not used a ClearFix. The secret is when you've got a container and you're floating stuff in that container, if you give the container an overflow hidden, all of a sudden everything will fall into place and the container will wrap around your floated content, and you're not going to have content below bumping up and around and doing all kinds of weird stuff. Nothing to do with it, but if you find that that works for you, like I said, 7 years, I have not used a ClearFix. Tell someone else, tell someone else, tell someone else. We're going to change what everyone believes about ClearFixes. They're nasty. So that is it. Any other questions? Yes, and yes.
Probably just introducing another nightmare, but the iframes, or trying to actually, have some type of responsive iframe, is that anything you've worked on, in any guidance?
Yes, I tell people who are using iframes, it's in our Comcast standards and best practices never to use them. And if they want to use them, okay, fine, you want to use them, just make sure that you that you add scroll bars to your iframe, because if someone makes theirs larger and their submit button is being cut away, and they need the scroll bar so they can get to their submit. And so what often happens is I've said, okay, fine, we need iframes programmatically and everything. I'm like, okay, fine, just make sure there's there's slider bars, and UX goes, oh, we don't want slider bars, so don't use iframes. Figure out a way, and then engineering will figure out a way. And we had our top level navigation, our global navigation. I told you, global navigation drama. It was even more dramatic before. They were putting it in as an iframe. I'm like, okay, fine, you need it. They're like, there's just no way. And I said, then just make sure there's scroll bars available. And all of a sudden, magically, they came up with a solution. So does that answer your question? All right, cool. You had a question?
This is for the people who are asking about responsive
Yes.
images. I think the source set attribute would take care of it.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, cool. Thank you.
I'm curious to know your thoughts on viewport units. And have you
Oh, yes.
had a
In
chance
fact,
to
I
work with them?
was using viewport units for a little while with this grid system that I was showing you. I was just it was causing me some drama. And what I found was if I used Flexbox, does anyone know? How many of you know Flexbox? So powerful, so powerful. And if you want to know more about Flexbox, if you want everything you want to know about Flexbox, but we're afraid to ask. And by the way, Flexbox isn't. It's been around for a long while. Flexbox. Yes, IE. But all of the other browsers, Edge, etc., like Flexbox, Complete Guide to Flexbox, CSS Tracks. I've been using Flexbox for about 2 years, and it's so rich that I still go back to this, and this is my cheat sheet. So I'll give you the URL for that. That's https://css-tricks.com/a-guide-to-flexbox. I love it. I'm not promising that everything on there is going to be accessible with the screen reader, but this is my go-to. So if you look at my solution, what I have here is I've got the remote control. I have a remote control div, and that has a display of flex. It's got to justify content of spacing evenly, so on the edges and on in between my little 3 grid clusters, everything's all spaced nicely. By the way, you'll notice that because I'm adding some margin on the right of my children, which each child is called remote control, remote group. Inside of the remote control, I have remote group. So those 3 remote groups are going to flex around remote control because I set remote control, the container, to flex. But I wanted, in case things got too squished, I wanted to make sure that things didn't run into each other. So I wanted to put a little bit of margin. So what I did so I have these little 2 rem margins. In this case, I used rems, not ems, for the margining because this is the overarching imagery. This isn't dealing with the text inside, though the text inside is relative as well. I wanted a lot of control with the sizing that I was trying to create. So what I did, you'll notice when I hover over the remote groups, they all have a margin right of 20 pixels. So that's going to make everything look like it ooched to the left. So I took the remote control that has flex on it, and I gave it a padding and ooched that to the right. So I just kind of recentered everything, just like a little trick. And then the remote groups are also flex, display flex. And inside of them are these little squares that I think there's 15 of them, and they go 3 across, 3 across, 3 across, 3 across. And so by making the remote group flex, all of those little buttons now flow around all so nicely. And I don't have to worry, don't have to worry about flows and things like that if I wanted to change the width, etc. And I did the same thing. So I wanted each button to have a margin right of 1 rem, so in essence 10 pixels, so that it will things won't run into each other. So what did I do? The remote group, so the buttons parent, I ooched that to the left with a what? With a padding left of 1 rem. So just, just kind of playing around with it. So take a look at it. I just found that, VWs, those are great, but when I was playing with VW, because that's where I was first going to, and VH, all that, just causing me more drama. It's great for a lot of things. It didn't work for this. Yes?
So I'm curious, a lot of us are working on production applications that have existing frameworks or existing fixed pixel values.
Mm-hmm.
And as those of us who do web development know, like the front end can be very coupled. And anyways, the question is, how do you start going down this path of relative font sizing when you're bound to have visual regressions on the front end? Like, do you have a recommendation on like where to begin?
Sure. And some of it's political, honestly.
Sure.
What we did, because we have about 50 products just under Comcast, not including NBC, not including Universal Studios. 50 products and growing. We had one product where the guy who was running that product he just caught the bug. He caught the accessibility bug. He was sitting with one of our UAT testers, David, every week. David is blind. Sitting with him, he launches with things accessible. Oh, what a great idea. We don't have to go back. Accessibility is not a feature. I have to keep telling people that. He really got it. So after about 2 years of that, his stuff just sang. It was just great. And he wanted the next challenge. And his manager said, he's chomping at the bit for the next challenge. And I said, okay, next challenge, let's do relative font sizing. And he had an intern. So he gave the intern a lot of that work to do. Smart intern. He was a freshman at Columbia, and he was doing things that I'd never seen before. And he's not even a computer science major. Go figure. But anyway, so you got an intern, you got to give him something to do. And that's how that worked out. By the end of the summer, and they were meeting with us like every 2 weeks. Okay, let's show you what we have. Let's whiteboard. And then when he had this done, he did a talk for all of the developers. And now all the developers are like, woo! And so they all want to know. So then you get another team, and it snowballs. I'm guessing, I've been working on this decided to fight for this starting at the beginning of this year. I'm guessing it's going to take me 2 years to get most people on board, and then maybe another year after that to see everything done. What we've got, and back to the global nav. This is why the global nav is such a bugaboo. Some people, some products, because they're all using global nav, have their thing set for, they don't reset their HTML. Okay. Some people do reset HTML. Some people are using pixels still. So we've got to do something. There's going to be some kind of sniffing and stuff that's going to work for everybody. And that's why that's going to be a problem. It's going to be a solution. We'll come up with a solution. We're already working on it. But yeah.
I think we have time for one more question.
Yeah. Sure. Sure.
It adds on to that one.
Sure.
So I was going to ask, so it seems like you were very fortunate to have a product owner who caught the bug, as you say.
Yes.
If you're in an organization where you don't necessarily have that product owner who caught the bug and then it can then spread beyond there, do you have any recommendations for, I guess, getting higher up stakeholders within an organization to start caring and push for this as more than just something we need to add on later or something that legal makes us do?
Sure.
And really,
Now,
you know,
legal,
bring it
of
to the
course, that's
front.
always a good catalyst. You get sued
Yes.
and, you know.
But it's always after the fact.
Right. So I've been at Comcast for 5 years. I was first a front-end architect for 2 years. And I had a team that I was responsible for. And so I started, as we brought the team on, I started really implementing this right from the get-go. I'm also a real stickler for lean semantic code. I don't like, if people are nesting, I'm going to send it back. If people are creating CSS and they're banging portanting all over the place, or they've got div, pound sign this, dot, send it back. I send it back. So what happened was I started finding 1 or 2 people who just wanted to learn a little bit more. They weren't sold yet, but they just wanted to learn a little bit more. And then I got a QA person who was like, ooh, that's really interesting. Can you show me how to test for accessibility? And then I got I got a product owner here. I got a dev person there. I got a QA person there. And then when I moved over to the accessibility department and went under product, Tom Lekowski is our vice president of accessibility. If any of you know him, he's really well known in this. I started a group, and you could invite people to the group, and it was called the Accessibility Allies. And we started a Slack channel called A11Y because we use Slack. So A1Y, Ally, it kind of looks the same, and kind of became a club. And as it became a club, and as people were chatting, people wanted to be part of the club. And it was really interesting. And then I started having people call me and say, are we better than the other team? We're the best, aren't you? And I would say, you guys are really up there, but we actually have another team that's even better. Well, what can we do to be better? So it really was that. And then started moving higher up, and higher up. Does that make...
Yeah, very much so.
Yep. Well, thank you all so very much.
Thank you so much, Adina. And, I really applaud this presentation. It's so awesome that the Xfinity site, like you're showing, is a live site implementing these practices. I mean, I think in the work that I do, I'm constantly, people want to see it to, like, believe it. So it's great that you guys are, like, living that.
Yeah, thank you.
So thank you for a great presentation. I just wanted to let everyone know, we meet the first Tuesday. Oh, yes. Blocking the captions here. We meet the first Tuesday of each month. We've been going now almost 3 years. So we're going to be sending a survey out to the group, and we just want to get feedback on how we're doing, what types of topics you're looking for. Obviously, a goal of us is to keep our meetup changing each month. We've really not ever had a duplicate topic each month, and we're just looking to get your feedback and thoughts on like how we can make this a better experience for you all. So we'll be sharing that link out. We also just, I guess, as we've become more and more connected with the community, we are using the message board or the discussion forum on our Meetup page as well to let you know about community events. I honestly can't keep up with everything that's going on, but there is always really cool stuff. Gotham Comedy Club on Monday night's going to have like a a benefit for blindness and retinal pignosa, like they're doing a comedy benefit, right? So we're just constantly going to be trying to point people to post that information there. And so if you're also promoting an event, I would just sort of ask you to start using our forum as a way to communicate that, so we can help spread the word about there's all the things going on in New York. Thanks, you guys.
All right, thank you.